Tommy Bridger, age 8 3/4, had exactly zero interest in the galactic zoological gardens. What he did have interest in was the gift shop he'd spotted on the way in, specifically the shelf with the glow-in-the-dark slime that allegedly contained real bioluminescent bacteria from Proxima 7. But his guardian, a four-armed Quillarian named Bloop, had other plans. No, young Tommy, Bloop chittered nervously, his primary arms clutching a datapad while his secondary arms wrung themselves together. The educational exhibits first. Your parents paid very good credits for this cultural experience. Tommy sighed the sigh of children everywhere who've been dragged to museums against their will. Bloop, it's just a zoo. Just a zoo? Bloop's eye stalks quivered. This is the most comprehensive collection of xenofauna in the entire sector. Do you know how many species are represented here? 4,723. I checked. Cool. Tommy was now eyeing a snack cart selling something called plasma puffs. They were surrounded by alien families of every conceivable shape and configuration. A Zentarian couple was trying to wrangle their 6 offspring, each about the size of a basketball and bouncing with equal enthusiasm. A towering Morvathian was bent nearly double to read the station directory. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, signs pointing toward the Deathworld wing with increasingly dramatic warning symbols. Ooh, can we go there? Tommy pointed at a sign featuring a red skull and what looked like 3 exclamation points having a panic attack. Bloop's skin tone shifted to a pale purple. That is actually precisely where we are going. Your parents thought it would be, quote, good for you to understand the uniqueness of your homeworld, unquote. My homeworld? You mean Earth? The very same. Tommy shrugged. Okay, I guess. Bloop consulted his datapad, scrolling through what appeared to be several pages of safety protocols. Now, I must remind you that touching the enclosures is strictly forbidden. Making direct eye contact with certain specimens is also forbidden. Sudden movements, loud noises, and displaying any signs of weakness are all naturally forbidden. Uh-huh. I'm serious, Tommy. These creatures are from a Class 12 death world. Do you understand what that means? Not really. It means, Bloop said, leaning down with all the gravity a 3-foot-tall alien could muster, that your planet is considered one of the most lethally inhospitable environments in known space. The fact that your species evolved there at all is considered a statistical improbability by most xenobiologists. Huh, Tommy said. But lots of stuff lives on Earth. Yes, and that is exactly what makes it so terrifying. They joined the flow of visitors heading toward the Deathworld wing. Tommy noticed that most of the aliens gave the entrance a wide berth, as if the doorway itself might bite them. A holographic sign flickered above the archway. Caution, extreme life forms ahead. Heart condition warnings in effect. Bloop pulled up the visitor's guide on his datapad. It says here that the Earth exhibit contains over 50 different species, each one a perfectly evolved killing machine adapted to your planet's hostile conditions. 50 seems like a lot for just the scary ones, Tommy observed. These are just the ones deemed safe enough for public viewing, Bloop whispered. I read that they had to keep the others in a classified facility off-station. Tommy was pretty sure Bloop was being dramatic, but he'd learned that arguing with his guardian usually just made field trips take longer. Besides, he was actually getting a little curious now. What kind of animals had they picked to represent Earth? Maybe they had a shark? Sharks were pretty cool. They passed through the archway and into a dimmed corridor lined with viewing windows. The lighting was red-tinted, giving everything an ominous glow. Suspenseful music played softly from hidden speakers. Wow, Tommy said. They really commit to the bit, huh? Bloop wasn't listening. He was already at the first exhibit, his eye stalks fully extended, reading the information placard with the intensity of someone studying for the most important test of their life. Tommy wandered over to join him, wondering what terrifying Earth creature awaited them behind the reinforced glass. The first exhibit contained a golden retriever. Tommy blinked. The dog was lying on its back in a patch of synthetic sunlight, tongue lolling out, one leg twitching in what was probably a dream about chasing squirrels. The placard read, Canine Pack Hunter, Extreme Danger, Native to all Earth continents. Hunts in coordinated groups using advanced communication. Bite force capable of crushing bone. Descended from apex predator wolves. Do not approach. Do not make eye contact. Escape protocols available at Visitor Center. That's a golden retriever, Tommy said. Bloop's skin had gone full lavender with stress. Yes, the file says they're one of the most successful predator species on your planet. It says here they've formed a symbiotic relationship with humans, using their pack-bonding instincts to... We have one. Her name is Princess Buttercup. Bloop's eye stalks retracted slightly. You have one of these? Yeah, she mostly sleeps on the couch and steals socks. A nearby Zentarian family had been listening. The father ushered his bouncing children away quickly, muttering something in his native language that Tommy's translator rendered as Deathworlder child. Clearly traumatized, very sad. They moved to the next exhibit. A Holstein cow stood peacefully chewing cud, occasionally swishing her tail at invisible flies. Territorial megafauna, the sign declared. Weighs over 700 kilograms. Highly aggressive when defending territory. Capable of trampling threats with devastating force. Known to have killed numerous humans. Maintain safe distance. That's Bessie, Tommy said, recognizing the name tag on the cow's ear. Or, like, a cow named Bessie. We drive past farms full of these going to my grandma's house. Farms? Bloop's datapad was out again, stylus poised. You mean containment facilities. I mean farms. People drink their milk. Bloop made a choking sound. You extract fluids from the territorial megafauna. Well, yeah. How else would you get milk? A scholarly-looking Morvathian nearby adjusted their optical enhancers and leaned in. Fascinating. The young human speaks of it so casually. The psychological adaptations required to function in such an environment. They continued down the corridor. Each exhibit was more absurd than the last. A chicken scratched at the ground. Labeled descended from ancient apex predators. Observe hunting behavior. Tommy pointed out that his neighbor kept 12 of them and they mostly just screamed at dawn and pooped everywhere. A rabbit sat twitching its nose, its sign warning of explosive breeding rates and evasive maneuvers indicating high prey drive environment. Tommy mentioned Easter. By the time they reached the 5th exhibit, a small crowd had formed around Tommy. Aliens were taking notes. Some were recording. A tour was in progress, led by a Zentarian guide whose name tag read Griblex. Griblex was tall for his species, nearly 4 feet, with iridescent scales and a voice that boomed through a translation collar. He was in the middle of describing a guinea pig's survival adaptations when he noticed Tommy. Ah, we have a young visitor. From Earth, I presume? Yeah. Hi. Griblex's eyes gleamed. How wonderful. Class, we have an actual human child here. Perhaps he can confirm some facts about these magnificent creatures. Young human, is it true that these animals can survive in atmospheric conditions that would liquefy most carbon-based lifeforms? I mean, they just need food and water and stuff. Remarkable, Griblex breathed. The casualness with which he describes the basic survival requirements. No mention of radiation shielding, pressure suits, or atmospheric filters. Why would a guinea pig need a pressure suit? The crowd gasped. Someone dropped their datapad. Griblex recovered first. Because Earth's atmospheric pressure is, well, it's quite substantial. And the oxygen content alone. Oh, Tommy shrugged. I guess we're just used to it. Used to it, Griblex repeated, turning to his tour group. Evolution at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. The human body has adapted to conditions that would be considered industrial-grade hazards on most civilized worlds. Bloop tugged at Tommy's sleeve, with one of his secondary arms. Perhaps we should move along. But we haven't seen the main attraction yet, Griblex announced, gesturing dramatically down the corridor. The centerpiece of our Deathworld collection, the crown jewel of Earth's predatory evolution. If you'll all follow me. The crowd surged forward, carrying Tommy and an increasingly distressed Bloop along with it. Tommy caught a glimpse of the next exhibit's sign and felt his confusion deepen. The words, Apex Deathworld Predator, glowed in urgent red letters, with more warning symbols than he could count. What could possibly be scarier than the chicken? The exhibit was elaborate, like movie villain's lair elaborate. A circular viewing area surrounded a habitat that had clearly consumed a significant portion of the zoo's budget. The enclosure itself was behind 3 separate layers of transparent barriers, each one glowing faintly with its own force field. Red warning lights pulsed along the floor. Speakers emitted a low, ominous hum. A holographic display rotated through different alert levels, currently showing condition yellow, specimen dormant. Inside the habitat, on a purple velvet cushion, was a cat. Not just any cat. A regular, standard-issue tabby cat with orange stripes and white paws. It was grooming itself with the focused dedication that cats bring to personal hygiene, occasionally pausing to yawn. Tommy recognized the name on the food bowl, Mr. Whiskers. Behold, Griblex announced, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper, the micro-predator. The crowd pressed closer to the barriers, which immediately triggered a recorded warning. Please maintain minimum safe distance of 2 meters. Everyone shuffled back except Tommy, who was trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke. The specimen before you, Griblex continued, represents perhaps the most perfect killing machine evolution has ever produced. Compact, efficient, deadly. Note the retractable claws, each one a precision instrument capable of inflicting devastating lacerations. Mr. Whiskers stretched, extending his claws into the cushion for leverage, then settled back into a loaf position. The crowd murmured in terror. Observe the tactical positioning, Griblex said. Even at rest, the creature maintains awareness of all potential threats and escape routes. The ears, capable of rotating independently to track sounds we cannot even perceive. The eyes, adapted for hunting in near total darkness with a reflective layer that maximizes available light. Those are called tapetum lucidum, the Morvathian from earlier said, typing frantically, shared by many nocturnal predators, but in combination with the other adaptations. And perhaps most terrifying of all, Griblex said, warming to his subject, the purr. The purr? Someone in the crowd asked. A hypnotic vibration produced in the creature's throat. Scientists theorize it's a pacification technique, designed to lower the guard of potential prey before the killing strike. Some humans have reported being completely paralyzed by the purr, unable to move even as the creature needs them with its, and I quote from the research here, murder mittens. Tommy raised his hand. Those are just paws. Griblex's. Attention snapped to him. I'm sorry, young human. The murder mittens, they're just paws, and the purring thing means they're happy, usually. Happy, Griblex repeated slowly. Yeah, cats purr when they're content. Or sometimes when they're hurt, actually. Because it's also a self-soothing thing. But mostly it means they like you. The silence that followed was profound. Bloop had gone completely transparent, which Tommy had learned was the Quillarian equivalent of wanting to disappear entirely. When they, and I'm quoting you here, like you, Griblex said, what exactly happens? Well, they purr and rub on you, and sometimes they knead with their paws. It's pretty cute. Cute, someone whispered. And the claws? Griblex pressed. During this kneading behavior? Oh yeah, they definitely use those. Sometimes they forget to retract them and it hurts a little, but mostly it's fine. A Zentarian in the back row fainted. Two of his offspring started bouncing frantically. Let me make sure I understand, Griblex said, his voice climbing an octave. You're telling me that humans willingly allow these apex predators to pierce their skin with retractable death claws as a form of, what, social bonding? I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. Mr. Whiskers chose this moment to stand up, stretch with his rear end in the air, and then hop off the cushion to investigate his water bowl. Every alien in the viewing area tensed. The holographic display flickered to condition orange, specimen mobile. Note the explosive acceleration from rest, Griblex narrated, his professional composure cracking slightly. The creature can go from complete stillness to lethal velocity in microseconds. Observe the spine flexibility, allowing for rapid directional changes that would tear lesser beings apart. Tommy watched Mr. Whiskers drink water with the same slightly gross slurping sound that his own cats made. A piece of kibble was stuck to the cat's whisker. I have 3 of these at home, Tommy said. He didn't realize what he'd done until he heard the screams. The viewing area erupted into chaos. The Morvathian dropped their datapad, which shattered on the floor. The Zentarian family that had already lost 1 member to fainting now had 2 more wobbling dangerously. Griblex's translation collar sparked and had to reboot. And Bloop, poor Bloop, made a sound like air escaping from a balloon and sat down heavily on the floor. 3, someone repeated in horror. The child said 3. Station security, this is Deathworld Wing Exhibit 7, a voice crackled over the intercom. We need a containment specialist and a psychological counselor immediately. We have a human child claiming cohabitation with multiple apex predators. Wait, what? No! Tommy looked around at the pandemonium he'd apparently caused. They're just pets. Everybody calm down. This did not have the calming effect Tommy intended. Pets? Griblex's voice went supersonic. You're telling me humans domesticate these creatures? On purpose? Well, yeah. People have been keeping cats for like thousands of years. An automated alarm began blaring. The force fields around Mr. Knott. Whiskers' exhibit intensified, cycling through colors like a distressed rainbow. The cat, utterly unbothered, began grooming his rear leg. Thousands of years, the Morvathian said weakly, retrieving their cracked datapad with shaking appendages. Thousands of years of deliberate proximity to obligate carnivores with documented kill counts. Kill counts? Tommy was pretty sure Mr. Fluffkins had once killed a moth. But that seemed beside the point. More aliens were arriving now, drawn by the commotion. A blue-skinned Arcturian in what looked like a zoo director's uniform pushed through the crowd, followed by several individuals in yellow hazard suits. "Someone explain what's happening," the director demanded. Griblex pointed at Tommy with a trembling claw. "The human child. He claims to have 3 of these in his residence. 3 micro-predators, living among his family unit." The director's facial tendrils went rigid. "Is this true?" Tommy was starting to get annoyed. "Yes, I have 3 cats. Mr. Fluffkins, Chairman Meow, and Sir Pounce-A-Lot. My sister named that last one. They sleep on my bed and knock stuff off tables and barf on the carpet sometimes. They're cats. This is normal." "Normal," the director echoed faintly. "Super normal. Like, millions of people have cats. Maybe billions? I don't know the actual number, but it's a lot." Someone in the crowd was crying. Actual tears. "But the danger protocols," a hazard-suited individual said, gesturing at the elaborate security measures surrounding Mr. Whiskers. "The documented hunting behaviors, the prey drive, the territoriality. They mostly just sleep," Tommy interrupted. "Like 16 hours a day. And the rest of the time they want food or attention, or they're racing around the house at 3 in the morning for no reason." Bloop had recovered enough to stand, though he kept one hand on the wall for support. "Tommy, perhaps you should stop explaining. You're making it worse." "How am I making it worse?" "I'm just telling them about cats." "Yes," Bloop said miserably. "That's the problem." The director was scrolling through something on a holographic display. "According to this, humans also domesticate canines, equines, and various avian species. There's a note here about something called a ferret?" "Oh yeah, my friend Jake has 2 ferrets. They're hilarious. They steal socks and hide them. The canines are descended from wolves," someone in the crowd said. "Wolves. Pack hunters capable of taking down megafauna several times their size. And humans just, invited them into their homes." The director looked like he was having a small existential crisis. "I mean, it took a few thousand years, but basically, yeah." A medical team had arrived and was checking on the fainted Zentarians. One of the medics glanced at Tommy and immediately began backing away slowly, as if sudden movement might trigger a predator response. Griblex had composed himself somewhat, though his scales were still flickering through stress colors. "Young human, Tommy, would you say that your relationship with these apex predators is, and forgive the terminology, friendly?" "Sure, I mean, Chairman Meow is kind of a jerk sometimes. But yeah, they're friendly." "And they don't attempt to hunt you?" "No. Well, sometimes they bite my ankles when they want breakfast, but that's different." More gasping. "The predators," the director said slowly, "bite you to communicate hunger? It's more like a nibble, really." The director pulled Griblex aside, and they began a rapid, whispered conversation. Tommy caught fragments. Unprecedented xenological discovery, complete psychological adaptation, and this explains so much about their military success. Finally, Griblex turned back to the crowd, then to Tommy. "Young human, I have a proposal. Would you be willing to demonstrate your, interaction techniques with the specimen?" Bloop made a strangled noise. "You want me to pet Mr. Whiskers? If you're comfortable doing so. For science." Tommy shrugged. "Sure, I guess." What followed was approximately 45 minutes of paperwork. Liability waivers were produced in triplicate. Emergency medical authorization forms were signed by Bloop with all 4 hands shaking. A hazmat team did a full decontamination sweep of the exhibit, even though Tommy pointed out that Mr. Whiskers was already inside it. 3 different insurance adjusters arrived and had heated debates about coverage policies. "This is insane," Tommy muttered, watching a team install what appeared to be additional medical equipment around the viewing area. "This is necessary," the director said firmly. He'd introduced himself as Professor Kelp, and he had the air of someone who'd resigned himself to making terrible decisions. "In the name of science, we're allowing a minor to enter an apex predator enclosure. If anything goes wrong, I'll be spending the rest of my career filing incident reports. Nothing's going to go wrong, it's just a cat." Professor Kelp's tendrils twitched. "Please stop saying that." Finally, after every conceivable safety protocol had been implemented, they were ready. The crowd had swelled to nearly 100 aliens, many of them recording. Someone had set up what looked like professional camera equipment. Griblex was narrating into a recorder for the archives. "We are about to witness," he intoned, "what may be the most significant interspecies contact study in modern xenobiology. The human child, Tommy Bridger, age 8.75, will now attempt peaceful interaction with a Terran micropredator. Designation, Mr. Whiskers. It's 8 3/4. Tommy corrected. 8 3/4. Griblex amended dutifully. The force fields powered down one layer at a time, each one accompanied by warning klaxons and flashing lights. Tommy half expected a countdown and maybe some smoke machines. When the final barrier opened, the crowd collectively held their breath. Tommy walked into the exhibit. Mr. Whiskers, who had been napping in a patch of artificial sunlight, opened one eye, then the other. He assessed Tommy with the calculated indifference that cats have perfected over millennia. "Hey, buddy," Tommy said, sitting down cross-legged on the floor about 3 feet from the cushion. "You're very fancy. Got your own force fields and everything." "Mr. Whiskers yawned, showing all his teeth. "Defensive threat display." Someone in the crowd shouted. "That's just a yawn," Tommy called back. "He's probably bored. Cats sleep a lot." Mr. Whiskers stood, stretched with his front legs extended and rear elevated, then hopped down from the cushion. He approached Tommy with measured steps, tail held high with a slight curve at the tip. "The tail posture indicates elevated threat level," Griblex narrated. "Note how the human remains still, clearly understanding the danger of sudden movements." Mr. Whiskers reached Tommy and immediately headbutted his knee. "Contact," someone screamed. "The predator has made contact." Then Mr. Whiskers did what cats do best. He turned around twice, kneaded Tommy's leg with his front paws, claws definitely extended, and flopped into his lap with all the grace of a bag of potatoes. The purring started immediately. Tommy scratched behind Mr. Whiskers' ears. The cat's eyes closed to slits, his purr increasing in volume. The crowd had gone completely silent. "So yeah," Tommy said, looking up at the cameras. "This is pretty much what cats do. They find a warm spot, usually a person, and they just, hang out." Mr. Whiskers was now doing the slow blink, that universal sign of cat affection. The optical signaling, the Morvathian breathed, recording furiously. "It's a trust indicator. The predator is deliberately reducing its visual awareness, demonstrating complete lack of threat assessment. This suggests an evolutionary bond going back thousands of years," Professor Kelp finished. "He already told us. They've been doing this for thousands of years." Mr. Whiskers rolled onto his back, exposing his belly. Tommy gave it exactly 3 pats before the cat decided that was enough, and grabbed his hand with all 4 paws. No claws, just holding it. "The tactical restraint technique," Griblex said weakly. "But no deployment of claws. It's almost playful." "It is playful," Tommy confirmed. "This is how cats play. See?" He wiggled his fingers. Mr. Whiskers immediately engaged in the time-honored game of catch the hand, bunny kicking Tommy's arm with his back feet while gnawing gently on his thumb. "The human is being bitten," someone yelled. "Why isn't anyone helping?" "It doesn't hurt," Tommy said. "He's being gentle. Cats know how to not actually bite when they're playing. Well, most of the time. Chairman Meow sometimes forgets." Mr. Whiskers released Tommy's hand and went back to purring in his lap, now kneading Tommy's leg in a rhythmic pattern that would definitely leave marks later. "The sound," Professor Kelp said, and Tommy realized the professor had moved closer to the barrier. "The purr. I've heard recordings, but in person it's quite nice," Tommy offered. "I was going to say hypnotic, but yes, nice." Tommy spent another 10 minutes in the exhibit, during which Mr. Whiskers demonstrated the full range of cat behaviors. More headbutts, a bit of grooming Tommy's hand with his sandpaper tongue, an attempt to bite Tommy's shoelace, and finally settling back into loaf position on Tommy's lap with his eyes closed. "I think he likes me," Tommy said. "Clearly," Griblex said, "the human possesses some form of predator empathy that allows for this unprecedented bond." "Or," Tommy said, "cats just like people. Not all people. They're pretty picky, but some people." When he finally stood up, carefully depositing Mr. Whiskers back on the cushion, the cat gave him a look of mild betrayal before resuming his nap. The crowd erupted into applause, clicks, whistles, and various other expressions of amazement in a dozen languages. Tommy walked out of the exhibit, and the force fields powered back up behind him. "That," Professor Kelp said, "was extraordinary." Professor Kelp's tendrils were quivering with what Tommy was learning to recognize as academic excitement. The kind of excitement that usually meant adults were about to make a big deal out of something completely normal. "Do you understand what you've just demonstrated?" Professor Kelp asked, ushering Tommy toward a quieter corner of the viewing area. The crowd was still buzzing, aliens chattering in dozens of languages, cameras still recording the sleeping Mr. Whiskers as if he might suddenly do something newsworthy. "That cats are nice?" Tommy offered. That humans have achieved a level of interspecies integration that we've never documented in any other sapient species. Professor Kelp pulled up a holographic display, images of Earth animals cycling past. Your species doesn't just survive on a death world, you've befriended it. I mean, not all of it. Nobody's friends with mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, Griblek said, consulting his datapad with renewed horror. Tiny flying parasites that spread deadly diseases. Yes, I read about those. They kill hundreds of thousands of humans annually. Yeah, they're the worst. And you just live with that? The constant threat of disease-carrying micropredators? Tommy shrugged. Bug spray helps. Professor Kelp was scrolling through files now, his expression shifting from academic interest to dawning horror. According to this, humans have domesticated over 40 different species. Cats, dogs, horses, cattle, pigs, chickens, geese, ducks, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, ferrets, goats, sheep, llamas. He paused. It says here you've domesticated wolves into over 300 distinct breeds. Dog breeds? Yeah, there's a lot. My grandma has a pug. It snorts when it breathes. Pugs, Griblex repeated, pulling up an image. He stared at it. This is a wolf? Technically descended from wolves, but that was like 15,000 years ago or something. The Morvathian from earlier had joined them, optical enhancers practically vibrating. The evolutionary pressure required to transform an apex pack predator into this. They gestured at the image of the pug, which was wearing a bow tie in the picture. The genetic manipulation alone. We didn't do genetic manipulation, Tommy said. Just selective breeding. You pick the dogs you like and let them have puppies, and eventually you get pugs. Takes a while, though. A while, the Morvathian said faintly. Thousands of years of deliberate genetic selection, working with predators at close range, generation after generation. Professor Kelp had gone very still. The horses. Tell me about the horses. What about them? The files say they're nearly 600 kilograms of muscle and bone, capable of delivering kicks with enough force to shatter concrete. Humans ride them for sport. Yeah, horseback riding. It's fun. My cousin does jumping competitions. Jumping competitions, Professor Kelp repeated. You've turned prey animal defense mechanisms into entertainment. When you say it like that. And the elephants. Professor Kelp's voice was rising now. The files mention elephants. Creatures massing over 5,000 kilograms with tusks designed for territorial combat. I'm seeing notes about elephant tourism, elephant sanctuaries, humans providing medical care to elephants. Well, yeah, elephants are endangered. We're trying to help them. You're trying to help them, Griblek said. The 5,000-kilogram territorial megafauna with documented charging behaviors and complex social structures that hold grudges for decades. I mean, we're the reason they're endangered in the first place, so it's kind of our responsibility. The three xenobiologists exchanged looks. We've been approaching this all wrong, Professor Kelp said slowly. We've been cataloging Earth species as individual threats, but the real story isn't the predators. It's the humans living among them. He turned to Tommy. Your species has created an entire civilization while surrounded by creatures that would send most sapient races into permanent bunker protocols. Earth's really not that bad, Tommy protested. Not that bad? Bloop had recovered enough to rejoin the conversation, though he still looked like he might faint again. Tommy, I've been reviewing your planet's wildlife. Do you know what a hippopotamus is? Yeah, they're chunky and live in rivers. They kill more humans per year than any other large animal in Africa. Okay, yeah, hippos are mean. You're supposed to stay away. From those. Stay away, Bloop shouted, his voice breaking. That's your solution? Just avoid the murder fauna? I mean, what else would you do? Bloop made a series of sounds that Tommy's translator couldn't process, probably some kind of Quillarian expression that didn't translate to standard. Professor Kelp was typing rapidly on multiple displays now. I'm updating the exhibit classifications. We've been framing this entirely wrong. These aren't specimens of dangerous fauna. They're examples of humanity's most impressive achievement, turning a hostile world into a garden. A garden full of apex predators, Griblex added. A garden nonetheless. A zoo security officer approached, looking uncomfortable. Professor, we have a situation. The human child expressed interest in visiting the petting zoo section. And that's a problem because the petting zoo contains Earth herbivores, rabbits, goats, a miniature horse. After what we've just witnessed, allowing a human child into that environment. The officer trailed off meaningfully. Professor Kelp's tendrils drooped. You're worried about the human hurting the animals? No, sir. We're worried about what the human might teach them. Tommy perked up. There's a petting zoo? Can I go? I promise I won't teach the goats anything. Absolutely not, Professor Kelp said firmly. Those animals have been carefully socialized to tolerate gentle observation from approved species. We can't risk introducing them to human interaction patterns. What does that even mean? It means, Griblex explained, that if those animals learn that humans are friendly, they might develop expectations of friendship from other humans, and then we'd have Earth animals actively seeking human contact. So that's how you get domestication. Griblex's scales were flashing through agitation colors again. One generation of positive contact, and suddenly we've got goats that think they're pets. Do you know what happens then? People start wanting goats as pets. Then they want the rabbits. Then someone says, well, if we can have rabbits and goats, why not a small horse? And before you know it, we've got a station full of Earth fauna and nobody knows who's in charge anymore. Tommy thought this was possibly the most ridiculous thing he'd heard all day, which was saying something. People already have goats as pets, and rabbits, and horses, though usually not on space stations. Which proves my point. Griblex gestured wildly. Your species is currently engaged in the active domestication of your entire planet. Given enough time, you'll probably have befriended the hippos. I don't think anyone's trying to befriend hippos. Yet, Bloop said darkly. You're not trying yet. An alert chimed on Professor Kelp's datapad. He glanced at it, and his tendrils went completely rigid. Oh no. What? Tommy asked. I just received an updated file on Earth domestication projects. Professor Kelp's voice had gone hollow. There's a section on current and historical attempts. He turned the display around. Tommy saw images of people with bears, elephants giving children rides, someone feeding a wild fox, a whole documentary series about wolf conservation where researchers lived among the packs. That's not domestication, Tommy said. That's wildlife rehabilitation and conservation. You're teaching them to trust you, Griblex said. That's pre-domestication behavior. That's how it starts. We're not trying to domesticate bears. You're not trying not to, Bloop pointed out. Professor Kelp was still scrolling. There's a note here about ravens, highly intelligent birds that humans have been observed forming bonds with in urban environments. And crows. Apparently crows remember specific human faces and can hold grudges for years, but they also bring gifts to humans they like. That's actually pretty cool, Tommy admitted. Cool, Professor Kelp said weakly. The human child thinks befriending grudge-holding. Corvids is cool. A message flashed across every display in the Deathworld wing simultaneously. Attention. Human child has accessed restricted species database. Repeat. Human child has accessed. Tommy held up his hands. That wasn't me. I don't even have database access. Not you, Professor Kelp said, checking his datapad. Your parents. They've submitted an official complaint about exhibit accuracy and provided corrected documentation on the following species: dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, horses, cattle, pigs, chickens, and, he scrolled further, and they've included video files of something called a petting zoo birthday party. The security feeds cut to a large display. Everyone watched as footage played of a dozen human children, Tommy's age or younger, running around a farm environment. They were feeding goats by hand, picking up rabbits. A tiny human, maybe 4 years old, was hugging a sheep that looked mildly annoyed but tolerant. Another child was sitting on a pony while adults supervised. The crowd of aliens watching made sounds of collective distress. They're just children, someone whispered. Human children interacting with megafauna without any protective equipment. The sheep alone weighs more than that small human, the Morvathian observed. Optical enhancers focused on the footage. And it's just allowing the contact. No threat displays, no defensive behaviors. That's because sheep are. Tommy started. Don't say it, Bloop interrupted. Please, for the love of all that's peaceful in the galaxy, don't say nice. The video continued. A parent was helping a child bottle feed a baby goat. The kid, the human kid, not the goat kid, although there was also a goat kid involved, was giggling. The baby goat was wagging its tail. The juvenile prey animal is displaying contentment, Griblex narrated, because apparently he couldn't help himself. In the presence of a Deathworld Predator species. This suggests multi-generational conditioning to accept human proximity. Or, Tommy said, animals are smarter than you think, and they can tell when someone's not going to hurt them. Professor Kelp closed the display. He looked tired. Young Tommy, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the Deathworld wing. Why? I didn't do anything wrong. No, you didn't. But your mere presence is causing a complete re-evaluation of our xenobiological classification systems. 3 exhibit reclassifications, 2 formal academic disputes, and a philosophical crisis about the nature of domestication. Also, if you go to the petting zoo, I'm genuinely concerned you'll start teaching the goats tricks, and then I'll have to explain to the board why our Earth herbivores are now performing on command. Goats already know tricks. They're smart. Professor Kelp's tendrils drooped completely. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? Bloop was tapping on his own datapad, his skin cycling through stress colors so fast he looked like a malfunctioning mood ring. Tommy, I'm receiving a message from your parents. What do they say? They're asking how the field trip went and whether you enjoyed the zoo. Bloop's voice had gone flat. They've also sent an attachment labeled Earth Domestication Comprehensive List, which appears to be several hundred pages long and includes sections on aquatic species, birds, insects, and there's a whole chapter on something called backyard beekeeping. Oh yeah, my teacher keeps bees. She brings in honey sometimes. Your teacher, Griblex said, voluntarily maintains a colony of stinging insects capable of coordinated swarm attacks? They're honeybees. They're important for pollination. Pollination, Bloop shouted, startling several nearby visitors. You've integrated them into your agricultural systems. That's symbiotic infrastructure. That's genius, Professor Kelp said quietly. He was reading through the document Bloop had mentioned, his tendrils moving in what looked like academic fascination mixed with existential dread. They've created a planet-wide ecosystem where they've integrated themselves at every level. Predators as companions, prey as food sources and partners, even insects serve functional roles beyond just existing. He looked up at Tommy. Your species doesn't conquer nature. You join it, I guess? Tommy was pretty sure this was one of those adult moments where they were reading way too much into normal stuff, which makes humans possibly the most terrifying species we've ever encountered. The Morvathian added, because you don't see yourself as terrifying at all. An announcement echoed through the Deathworld wing. Attention visitors. The exhibit wing will be closing temporarily for recalibration. All guests, please make your way to the exits. Thank you for visiting the Galactic Zoological Gardens. Bloop stood up, gathering his things with all 4 arms. Come on, Tommy. We're leaving. Right now. Immediately. But I still wanted to see the gift shop. The gift shop can wait. I need to contact the Guardian Placement Agency and formally request a transfer to literally any other assignment. Preferably one involving a species from a nice, peaceful Class 1 garden world, where the most dangerous fauna is something that photosynthesizes aggressively. You're quitting? Tommy felt a pang of guilt. Is it because of me? It's not you personally, Bloop said, though his color suggested otherwise. It's the existential terror of realizing I'm responsible for a member of a species that casually cohabits with apex predators and considers venomous insects to be garden partners. I'm not equipped for this, Tommy. I'm a simple Quillarian. I like peaceful things, safe things. Things that don't have claws or teeth or stingers or any other weaponized appendages. Humans have all of those things, the Morvathian pointed out helpfully. Bloop's color drained completely. Oh stars, you're right. The humans are also apex predators. I'm guarding an apex predator while he visits an exhibit about the other apex predators he lives with. He swayed slightly. I need to sit down again. Professor Kelp was still reading the domestication document, scrolling faster and faster. There's a section here about dolphins. They're working with dolphins. And horses in therapy programs. And dogs trained to detect medical conditions. They're not just living with these animals. They've created entire systems of mutual benefit. He looked at Tommy with something like awe. How many species have you successfully partnered with? I don't know. A lot? Estimates suggest over 50 in regular domestic use. Over 100 if you count agricultural partnerships. And thousands if you include species benefiting from conservation efforts. Professor Kelp's datapad chimed again. And I'm now receiving complaints from the arthropod wing. Apparently, your parents' document includes a section on butterflies as garden friends and silk moths as textile partners. Silkworms, Tommy corrected. They're domesticated moths. We've been using silk for like 4,000 years. 4,000 years of partnership with insects, Griblex said. 4,000 years. The Chinese figured it out first, I think. We learned about it in history class. More alarms were going off now, though these seemed to be metaphorical ones among the staff. Zoo employees were rushing around with datapads, having urgent conversations. Tommy caught fragments. Reclassify all Earth exhibits. Psychological consultation for trauma. Do we need to warn the botanical gardens? Why would you need to warn the botanical gardens? Tommy asked. Because, Professor Kelp said, still reading, there's an entire section in this document about plant domestication. Apparently, humans have been selectively breeding plants for over 10,000 years. We have Earth flora exhibits in the botanical wing. If those plants have been bred to depend on human care, they're probably fine. Plants are pretty hardy. Says the species that cultivated roses to bloom in every color except blue, and then started working on genetic modification to create blue roses specifically. Well, yeah, blue roses are cool. Bloop had his face in all four hands. I can't do this. I can't. Every piece of information makes it worse. A final message appeared on Professor Kelp's datapad. He read it, and his tendrils curled in resignation. The station director wants a full report on this incident. They're considering redesigning the entire Deathworld wing to focus less on individual species threats and more on the human capacity for what they're calling aggressive befriending. Aggressive befriending? Tommy repeated. It's not inaccurate, the Morvathian said. Your species identifies a creature, determines it would make a suitable partner, and then spends generations cultivating that relationship until the creature can't imagine life without you. From an outside perspective, it does look somewhat aggressive. We're not aggressive. We're friendly. You're friendly to creatures that most sapient species would categorize as extreme hazards, Griblek said, which, from a certain point of view, is deeply, profoundly unsettling. Tommy gave up trying to explain. Adults, whether human or alien, were going to think whatever they wanted. Can I at least go to the gift shop now? Professor Kelp looked at Bloop, who was still recovering. I think that would be fine. Just, please, don't mention any other animals you might have at home, or any plants, or insects, or really any other life forms of any kind. I was just going to buy some glow-in-the-dark slime. Slime is good. Slime is safe. Slime is not a domestication project. Tommy and Bloop made their way toward the exit, leaving behind a Deathworld wing in complete chaos. Behind them, Tommy could hear Professor Kelp organizing an emergency staff meeting, Griblex updating his tour, scripts, and at least 3 different research teams arguing about publication rights for the day's events. At the gift shop, Tommy bought his slime and a stuffed animal that looked like Mr. Whiskers. The cashier, a nervous Zentarian, processed the purchase while maintaining maximum possible distance. Did you enjoy your visit? The cashier asked, because apparently, they had to. Yeah, it was pretty fun. The cat was nice. The cashier's color shifted to pale yellow. The human child enjoyed the apex predator. Of course he did. Why would I expect anything else? Outside the zoo, waiting for transport back to the residential district, Tommy opened the jar of slime. It did indeed glow with a faint blue luminescence. Pretty cool. Bloop sat next to him, still processing everything. Tommy, can I ask you something? Sure. Do humans ever stop to think that maybe, just maybe, they should leave some creatures alone? That perhaps not everything needs to be friends with you? Tommy considered this. I mean, we leave most stuff alone. There's millions of species on Earth we don't interact with at all. But given the chance, I guess if something seemed friendly, yeah, we'd probably try to be friends with it. That's just normal, right? Bloop made a sound like a sigh crossed with a whimper. For humans, apparently yes. For the rest of the galaxy, absolutely not. The transport arrived. As they boarded, Tommy noticed several alien passengers immediately move to different seats, putting maximum distance between themselves and the human child. I think we freaked people out, Tommy whispered to Bloop. You think? Bloop's sarcasm translator was working perfectly. Tommy's datapad chimed with a message from his parents. Hope you had fun at the zoo. Your teacher called and wants to know if you'd be interested in joining the class trip to the Aquatic Research Station next month. They're opening a new Earth Oceans exhibit. Bloop read the message over Tommy's shoulder and made a Pactivision A. Noise like a deflating balloon. Earth Oceans, he said weakly. What lives in Earth's oceans, Tommy? Oh, tons of stuff. Whales, dolphins, octopuses, sharks, all kinds of fish. Stop. Just stop. Bloop activated his datapad and began typing. I'm formally requesting an emergency transfer. Effective immediately. To any posting that does not involve Earth, humans, or any planet classified above Class 3 on the danger scale. You're really quitting? Tommy, your planet has creatures in the oceans that can grow to over 30 meters long. That's larger than most spacecraft. And according to this, he waved his datapad. Humans go whale watching as a recreational activity. Well, yeah, whales are amazing. Whales are massive aquatic megafauna that could accidentally destroy small vessels. They don't, though. They're gentle. Mostly. Mostly, Bloop repeated. The human child says mostly. He stood up as the transport reached their stop. That's it. That's my limit. I'll help you home. I'll make sure your parents know I'm resigning. And then I'm requesting an assignment on a nice quiet space station that exclusively serves species from low-gravity garden worlds with nothing more dangerous than decorative moss. They walked through the residential district, passing humans going about their normal lives. A woman walked by with a large dog. A man had a cat carrier with a meowing occupant. Someone's apartment window showed a terrarium with what looked like a snake. Bloop saw all of this and walked faster. At Tommy's apartment, his parents were waiting. They had 3 cats, as advertised. Mr. Fluffkins, Chairman Meow, and Sir Pounce-A-Lot. All 3 immediately rushed to investigate the new arrival, because that's what cats do. Bloop backed against the door. They're surrounding me. Why are they surrounding me? They're just saying hi, Tommy's mom said. Don't worry, they're friendly. Everyone keeps saying that, Bloop said, his voice climbing into ranges that probably only dogs could hear. Everyone keeps saying things are friendly. The mega predators are friendly. The prey animals are friendly. Everything on this nightmare planet is apparently friendly. Do you know how terrifying that is? Tommy's dad looked concerned. Is everything okay? No, Bloop said. No, everything is not okay. Your son caused a complete philosophical crisis at the Galactic Zoological Gardens by petting a cat. A cat. Something you people apparently do every day without even thinking about it. He was backing toward the door now, carefully stepping over Chairman Meow, who was trying to rub against his legs. I've submitted my resignation. The agency will send a replacement guardian within 48 hours, preferably one with psychological preparation for Deathworld species integration. I'm sorry. I tried, I really did, but I just can't. And with that, Bloop fled into the corridor, leaving behind a confused human family and 3 cats who seemed vaguely offended that the visitor hadn't stayed to pet them properly. Tommy's mom looked at Tommy. What happened at the zoo? I pet a cat, Tommy said. Apparently that's a big deal. His dad shook his head, bemused. Aliens are so weird. Tommy couldn't argue with that. He went to his room, carefully placed the stuffed Mr. Whiskers on his shelf next to the other souvenirs from field trips, and opened the glow in the dark slime. Chairman Meow immediately tried to investigate it, because cats are curious about everything, and Tommy had to quickly put the lid back on before the cat decided to eat something that definitely wasn't food. You're a menace, he told Chairman Meow. The cat slow blinked at him and purred. In the living room, Tommy could hear his parents already calling the Guardian Agency to explain the situation and request someone with a more robust constitution. Somewhere on the station, Bloop was probably filling out incident reports and seriously reconsidering his career choices. And in the Deathworld wing of the Galactic Zoological Gardens, Mr. Whiskers had returned to his cushion, completely unaware that he'd just triggered the largest rewrite of xenobiological classification standards in modern history. He yawned, groomed one paw, and went back to sleep. Just another normal day for a cat.